Hi, welcome back to Epilepsy Moms. It's summer and my son has generalized epilepsy with tonic-clonic and absent seizures.
Hi, my name is Liz, and my daughter has focal epilepsy in her temporal lobe.
Hi, my name is Bree, and I am an early childhood education teacher.
I want to ask, so what is a good way to use conscious discipline when kids are arguing? So either like siblings or, you're just not getting along with friends or whatever.
So it might be really annoying for you as the parent to like really mediate, but what I do in my classroom when kids are arguing is I literally sit in between them, and I love this conscious discipline too. There's these little feet on the ground. I don't have them out in my classroom. I just do them with them because there's a lot of things for them to like pick up and throw. So we're just gonna walk on the ground. But they take like, are you willing? Are you willing? And they're like asking if they're willing to talk to each other, and then they each take a step forward and then like willing to talk about it and compromise. Now that's not gonna work in the heat of an argument, obviously, because you're screaming at each other like whatever.
I'm thinking like, my oldest and my middle, like totally right now.
Yeah.
Like making them stand in front of each other, let alone like not trying to smack each other.
But like
this is going to be great.
Calming them, like kind of being like, okay, well, is what you're doing working? Is this getting you what you wanted? Does it make you feel better? Does it make you feel worse? And that's kind of what I go through is like, hey, right now you're screaming. How does that make your body feel? Like when I see you screaming, I see your shoulders are up like this, your body's tight, your face is screaming, your throat probably hurts, like things like that, like showing them with my body how I see them, and like telling them, hey, like you don't have to do it this way, and then showing them the appropriate way to problem solve. And like screaming is not an option. We can use our inside voices to talk to each other. Screaming at each other is not how we get what we want. That's not going to solve anything. That's going to make both of us more angry, more upset, more worked up, and neither of us are going to get what we want in the end. We're just both going to be upset.
Now what if the parent is a yeller?
That's not conscious discipline. That is the thing.
I will admit it. I am a yeller, and I don't mean to be, but I am. So like that conscious discipline. Right. Yeah, so like, but how? I have literally tried. So it's like, do I put them face to face and just do it with them?
Yeah, no, you literally have to hold their hands to do this. Yeah, that's why I said you're gonna hate this because you're gonna have to be the mediator. Because normally I'm gonna want their mom. And that's the thing too, is like you could do that, is separate them and say, okay, we both need some space. I think you need to go to your room and cool down for a little bit. You also need to go to your room and cool down for a little bit. Okay. I'm going to set a timer, and I'll come back and check in with you in 10 minutes and see if you guys are ready to talk it out.
Okay, that feels a little better. I can probably do that one.
I don't mean like scream, like right in the upset and figure out a problem. Because that's not always how it works.
Sure.
We need to like regulate our emotions first.
Okay.
And that's what I always say is like, they need to be able to talk. You know what I mean? If they're crying and screaming, if they are not able to formulate sentences clearly because they are so worked up, so angry about whatever just happened, they need to take some time to cool down. They need some time for themselves. Like,
that makes more sense.
Whether it be like, hey, let's go play with some sand for a little bit, then we can talk about this. And it doesn't necessarily need to be like, you need to go to your room for 10 minutes and think about the way that you were just screaming at your sister. It needs to be like, hey, we're all a little upset right now. I think we could all use some time to breathe, and then we can reevaluate in a little while. But because like their emotions are valid, but what they're doing with that emotion is not okay. And they need to figure out a different outlet, and that needs to be like separating and then coming back to terms with reality and like figuring it out, and not necessarily like separating and like never coming back, because you don't want them to like, okay, and also feel invalidated, like whoever was upset first, like might feel invalidated if you never come back to it. That's like, true. Hey, I was upset and we got sent to our rooms and we never figured it out, but that really hurt my feelings when my brother did this, right. And that needs to be validated and saying, hey, you really hurt your sister's feelings when you did this. How could you make her feel better? Or, hey, what could he do to make you feel better? What could we do next time? And like really talking it out and like giving them the choice, but not letting the emotions control everything else and control you too, because it is overwhelming when there's so many emotions.
Yeah.
Especially like I couldn't imagine being with children all day and like coming home to children too, but like being in my classroom with all my kids and like the amount of emotions with 18 kids, like there's at least 5 kids crying at the same time, you know what I mean? Once a day. And so it's like I can't be with all of them at the same time, but I can say, hey, I can come back and check in with you in a few minutes, but so and so is upset, after I help them calm, regulate, and get an activity or in the safe place. And I don't have 5 safe places in my classroom, but I do allow children, like if someone is in the safe place, I go and check on them. If somebody else is like, I can tell needs it more, I'm like, hey, I see that you like this activity and you're still in the safe place. Do you see so and so and how upset they are? They could really use the safe place. You can take that activity to the table, and when you're all done with it, just put it back away in the safe place. And that's something that you could do too in your house, is like having, I know that you have a safe place, like you said, for your daughter, but
Right.
you could have different, and I wouldn't say stations, but different tools around the house that are like, okay, everybody can use these when we're a little bit upset, whether it's like a fidget spinner and or like a puzzle or whatever. It could be something to help them calm down and like be that outlet when they're not being sent to their rooms, but like, hey, you need a second to cool down. These are your options.
Sure. I feel like every kid just needs a safe place in their room, no matter what age they are.
I agree.
And I like,
great.
And parents just need their bed.
yeah, we're tired.
Yeah.
I like how that just encourages, self-control, right? Because we ultimately, we all want our children to grow up to be adults who have self-control and know, when it's appropriate to have big emotions and when it's appropriate to like think about things and and to control yourself and those emotions. And so I didn't know this was conscious discipline, but I did that a lot with my boys when they were younger. So when they were like, 4, 2, and 1, I did it a lot, like just sitting down with them and being like, oh, you guys are fighting, like what's wrong? And why are you saying this? And this is how this makes him feel. And, you made your brother feel this way. Like, what can we do to make him feel better? And let's apologize. And I always made him, not just sorry, but sorry for blah, blah, blah. And it has made, I can tell you it's made a huge difference. Like now my boys are older, they hardly ever argue. And when they do, they're really good at coming back and being like, and sometimes they'll still come to me and be like, well, he did this or he did that. And then I'm like, well, what should we do? Like, let's think about it. But it rarely happens now. It's, they pretty much just get along and it's great. And I'm sure that it's because of that time I spent back then. I know I was doing business like weeks ago. I'm like, you've got to like sit with them, help them to like walk through it. And you do.
I feel like literally the worst mother.
No,
like
you're not.
You're not even a mom, and you're like the best mom in the world. What's really funny is my husband the other day had said, like, I don't remember who he was talking to. He was talking to somebody, and he was like, when Liz was, when we were in high school and, graduating and everything, I was just like you. I had the most patience. I was pretty cool, calm, and collected. I don't know. I didn't have kids. I didn't have responsibilities, like to the extent of like, crap, let's be real. I didn't have responsibilities a lot at all. I was coming out of high school, so I didn't have like, I was going into college and stuff like that, but I was living with my parents and, like easy things. But I had so much just calmness in a sense of like, I was a very anxious person, but like, I could talk my way through things. I was fine. And when I started having kids, it just kind of like, with each of them, it's just slowly gone down the hill and it's just rolling and tumbling and like the hill, like the cliff has been like 11 years long. It's just not getting any better.
It's hard because like the more kids you have, like the more work it is and the less energy you have. So, and I'm not saying I did that all the time, but I did it more than I didn't do it. And that made a difference. And now
I wish it was something that I had known early on so that I could have implemented it. Like, and that was another thing is when I was younger, raising my son, I was not a kid, but I was young. I mean, I was 20 years old, not even, I just barely turned 20 when I had him. And so I can't imagine having good influencers in my life. Like if I had, you as a friend that could implement things and help me get through things, or even you as, being a part of my life early on and just being like, hey, this is what I did with my boys. You really should try it. Like I wish I had people in my life back then when I, was early raising him but honestly, like a lot of it is like, trial and error. You're going to do what you're going to do. But, you do need positive influencers in your life when you're raising kids.
Yeah. And also,
the more you have, the better it's going to be.
I had that teaching background too. So I was learning, how to deal with kids. Like, this is not like something you're just going to know. It is like,
right. I was going to say,
so
the only job I've ever had has been with children. So
yeah.
I feel like that's also why I have so much patience and why, like, not that it's easy, but it already, like, conscious discipline really already aligned with how I was teaching in my classroom in general, because I don't imagine walking in your pre-K classroom to pick up your child and the teacher's yelling at your kid when they're crying. You know what I mean? Like, I would much rather walk in to the teacher holding my kid, talking them through their emotions, saying, hey, why are you feeling this way? What made you feel this way? And like helping them regulate it, because that is modeling to them how to cope and how to self-regulate and things like that. And I don't know, I just feel like what would I want my future children to have? And so that is the teacher that I am, or try to be.
Yeah.
But
I wish you lived closer to me, because I'd send my daughter to your class. She'd be in there.
I love it. Oh, also one of the quotes that like comes from the Conscious Discipline book that I love, and when we were talking about how I don't even remember what we were talking about, but it really goes along with everything. But it says, we must see children differently in order for them to behave differently. And it's like, you don't want to see the child in a negative light because they have a negative behavior. Like you need to see them differently and for what they're worth, and really put the work into helping them control and manage and do all these things with their behavior and their emotions. Because if you don't have hope in them, why would they have hope in themselves? And that's really, it's like it again, like I go back to my sister who struggled in school, and it's like people didn't believe in her. She didn't have a strong support system at the school she was at before, but now she's in a school where, and this school was huge, but now she's in like a tinier school where all the teachers know her name. They greet her by her name. They say good morning and her name. She's only gone there a few months so far, and she loves it. She's thriving. She has straight A's when she was failing every single class. And it's really about like building the connection and like having faith and telling these children like, you can do it, and like really like, they have the power to choose how their day is going to go. They have the power to choose whether these things are going to happen, and just like really giving them that feeling of having that power, but also like, I can do it. I'm fully capable. Instead of being like, why do you always do this? Why is this behavior always happening? I don't like it when you do this, where it's like super negative and they're going to feel negatively. They're going to feel worthless, where we want them to feel awesome. We want them to feel like on top of the world, because I feel like that's when kids are their best, when they're feeling their best. And we can do that with our words by like, when they're doing something great. Hey, I love that you just picked up that garbage off the ground and I didn't even ask you to do it. Thank you so much. That is so helpful around the house. Something like that. Like little like positive reinforcement things that'll help them. And they're like, oh, I just got a compliment from my mom. She didn't even ask me to do that. I'm going to do that all the time, And that's like something that I use in my class a lot of the time, where I'm like, I do a lot of singing. I'm not a great singer, but I like the way that so-and-so is sitting. I almost said a name. And then everybody's like, oh, I want Miss Bree to sing my name. So they're like getting their coats on, racing the line so I can sing their name next. And it's like, that's the behavior I want to see. But I'm not saying, hey, I see that you're messing around behind the cubbies. Get your coat on and come have a seat on the line. I'm just seeing other kids and they're like, ooh, Miss Bree didn't say my name. I'm going to get this coat on before she tells me, And that's what I mean earlier when I was saying kind of like trick them into thinking it's their idea. Because in their head, it is their idea. They hear other people's names and they want that gratification of like their name being said on the line. They want to feel like they were noticed and recognized.
Yeah.
And I always do it during circle time too. So I'm like, I see so-and-so is sitting on their dot, crisscross applesauce, ready for circle time. Kiss your brain. And then they're all like, oh, I better clean up my center and get on my dot so my spray can tell me to kiss my brain. And your son's always like, and he's like over the corner. Hey, Pierre, you shouldn't get your brain yet. Get your brain on the way to the stop. But yeah, but
he just does what he wants.
Things. Yeah,
at home too.
And that's, I think, something I need to improve on at home is, I think, complimenting and giving those compliments more than you give the negative, like, hey, you didn't do this right. We should be saying more often, hey, and even if it's like dumb stuff, if it's like,
yeah,
you closed the door, awesome, like,
yeah,
you took the garbage out.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for turning the light on. You're saving energy. Like,
yeah,
little, like, even I like how you were playing with your sister and including your sister today. She loves playing with you. She looks up to you and things like that. Like, it doesn't feel like that might be a compliment to them, but they're like, ooh, hey, I'm gonna play with
Mom
my
was
sister
happy.
more. Yeah, like that was something that, and like, it's giving them that positive attention of like that they could be seeking when they're doing those negative behaviors that we don't like seeing. But a lot of the times those behaviors are happening because it's like, how can I get this attention? Regardless, I'm going to get it, whether it's a good way or a bad way. It's easier for me to act out and get attention than it is for me to sit here and pick up garbage. Is mom going to see that I'm doing this? You know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's like, I feel like kids want to do what is going to give them the attention.
I really wish I had worked on all this last year when I was homeschooling.
That would have been easier. I mean, I wouldn't say easier, but you would have had a lot of opportunities to practice homeschooling.
Yeah.
And I just
homeschooling didn't go very well.
So this is like kind of like an example of what not to do. So when I was learning to be a teacher, I had to go observe at a preschool. I had noticed there was one teacher, she was always yelling at the class, always was negative reinforcement. It was always like, why are you doing that? What are you doing? Why did you drop this? And there was one student in that class in particular, and she's only like 3 or 4 years old, but she was constantly like saying her name, like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it was such a negative environment. And the girl, she ended up having accidents every day at school. And everybody, I just had heard whispers of parents asking, like, why is she doing this? Like, she doesn't do this at home. And the teacher saying, well, she did it again. She did it again. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just wish they knew, because that's why she is having accidents here at school, not at home, because this is a stressful environment for this child. Yeah. It's not okay. But there are those times when if your child is having like a behavior like that, sometimes it's good to look into it and see why, especially what's happening at home. Find out why.
And really to ask the teachers too, because it not only like brings it to their attention, like, hey, I'm aware that this is happening at school, but it kind of puts them in the hot seat. Like, hey, do you know why this is happening? And if they are aware that their classroom is a negative environment, they might have a moment of like, oh, wow, I didn't realize, hey, I didn't connect the dots. But it is true. Like, a lot of those behaviors do happen because of a stressful environment or a negative environment and children not feeling safe. And that's like, I feel like I've said that on repeat today, is like feeling safe and like being safe and instilling safety in your classroom. And I feel like that is like the biggest thing, is safety, because if like, I don't know, if something was going on at home or whatever, like I would want the children to come to me and tell me like, hey, Miss Bree, I feel unsafe or whatever. And are they going to do that in a negative classroom environment where they already don't feel safe there? If something's going on at home, they have no safe spot, you know?
And then they're going to act out more.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it's going to be happening in both places. And then we don't have a solution because it's across the board. But that is really heartbreaking.
It was so
that is really sad.
I always like to say too to parents, you can go observe anytime you want. Call a school and say, hey, I want to come and observe and see, and even if things are going great at your school, it's a great way to get to know your teacher, get to know the other kids. Like, no teacher is going to say, no, you can't come and
exactly. And if they do, that's us.
Or if it's COVID, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's
Maybe
true.
It's a COVID, but
Times are different.
right. But definitely before COVID, you could go in anytime and just hang out and see what's going on in your kids' class.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's all my questions.
Are you all done with your questions?
Huh?
Yay.
So I have a quote from the Epilepsy Foundation website, which we will also link below. And it says, treating epilepsy means treating the whole child, not just the seizures. Even if medications or surgery cure the seizures, problems with language, learning, and behavior may remain. We emphasize disciplining the child, not the seizures. Parents will often discipline and parents will often discipline and parent the epilepsy, not the child. They fear that if they stress the child by scolding too much, the child will have a seizure. Don't let the seizures change things. If discipline does precipitate seizures, tell the doctor so that it can be worked on. Discipline should be pretty much the same whether your child has epilepsy or diabetes or no health problems at all. So the moral of the story is you can still discipline your child no matter what kind of diagnosis they might have. You can implement, the conscious discipline. There's lots of safe ways to discipline a child that is not going to harm them.
Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions for Bree, she would love to answer them. So please comment in the section below.
Your story's not over.
Your story's just begun.